Hello, everybody. Today is May 13th, Tuesday, about 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Just a lot going on out there, so I thought I'd do a quick video. I didn't do one at the end of last week because I had a lot going on and so forth. So, thought I'd jump right in. Big news today on the economic domestic front was the inflation number, 2.3. But there's some good charts from out there from Zero Edge and EJ and Tony I wanted to hone in on. So, here we go, Zero Hedge. Despite mainstream panic, U.S. consumer price inflation tumbles to lowest in over 4 years. Imagine that. Next one. Boom. EJ and Tony. Food prices in April declined for first time since, check notes, November 20th, the last time Trump was president. Seeing a pattern here? Now, declines, not rate of decreased, right? Like inflation. Inflation still goes up, you know. Inflation went up on the Biden 9%. They went down to 7%. They say, see, inflation's, the prices are going down. No, prices are not going down. The rate of increases is going down. Okay? But now, food prices actually decline. And it's a direct correlation. Why? Deregulation. Getting rid of this green crap. Allowing for energy production. And they're anticipating the costs and increased production of these products. And companies and farmers and everybody can plan better for the next 4 years, giving certainty. And that's why you're seeing such a quick decline in these prices. You know, we're not killing 100 million chickens anymore for the eggs, for example. All right? So this is a good thing. You know, fuel that with the investments we saw from last GDP number coming into the United States or in general in investing in the economy. So this is not coincidence. So I really like this next chart. Inflation during Trump's second term thus far is only 1.6 at an annualized rate. That's awesome. I mean, that's nil, right? That's much lower than Biden's first 18 months, 8.6 annualized, and about half the rate of Biden's last 30 months. It's also lower than the average from June 9th through 20. And you can see the different phases there, and up here is Trump coming down. But it's not. It's like I said. It's not surprising. Yeah. These deregulations are having an immediate impact. I also think the tariffs and these trade agreements are having an impact as well. The certainty on the tax bill. So the expense stuff. They know taxes aren't going to go up. The other taxes are going to be made permanent. There's going to be tweaks on this. So. Expensing of products, 1 year expensing, that is a key thing. So, that being said, since I mentioned the tax bill, I wanted to jump right in. All right, this is from EJ and Tony. Stop demanding the average American subsidize your poorly run high tax state via the tax code. The state and local tax deduction should be eliminated, not increased. All right. And this is a response on a repost from Congressman Tom Suozzi of Long Island. This is awful. It's a direct contradiction of the president's September 17th campaign promise on Long Island to get SALT back. He's referring to the rally at Madison Square Garden. It's obvious that Republican leadership is trying to drive people out of New York and other high state taxes that prioritize investments in education, infrastructure, and public safety. It's these investments that make these states economic powerhouses, yet federal policies consistently seek to weaken their ability to thrive. This is the height of hypocrisy. And they're referring to the House Ways and Means. They're going to lift the cap for SALT to 30 and the income phase down above 400,000. Okay? So I wanted to talk about that real quick. One, especially someone who's lived both in the metro area of New York and in upstate New York. You have a state like New York, compilation of small cities upstate, depressed, once manufacturing base, nothing there, highly dependent people, not just Medicaid, all social services. One city by near me had over 40% of its residents on social services. Okay, parts of the city you can't even walk down, right? We used to say we're going to drive up to Albany to go shopping. You never went in the city of Albany. Everything was in the suburbs, okay? That's not the case at all where I live now. Now we go downtown. We walk around the town and the city and whatever, and we're fine. Are there a couple of bad pockets? Of course, that's every city. But point I'm trying to make, there was once manufactured. There isn't. You drive across the state, it's just empty factories all along I-90 and all that stuff. So you have mega non-haves. You also had a thriving agricultural industry in New York, declining, especially in real terms, declining. You have the ability for energy production. No, we'll import it from Canada because we can't frack or do anything under the Marcellus Shale. Then you have the metro area, which is an economy that is fueled by the over-financialized system. They're benefiting from the globalist system being a financial center. You know, I've seen arguments on social media where people threaten, we should secede, the red states go, and blue people say, look at our GDP. Okay, let's take New England, for example, and New York. Let's just say if you were to make them their own country. What do they produce? They don't manufacture. They don't really have any serious agriculture. They don't have any serious energy. Everything's based upon our over-financialized system, and basically the value of the dollar and what the American empire provides. By itself, there's nothing there. They would have to restructure and become more self-sufficient. Okay, the United Kingdom, which is really a service economy as well, really shifted to a service economy. But at least it's part of the EU now. So you can't do that with like this specific state or a very homogenous region like New York and New England, especially along the Acela corridor there. So the argument's insane. You also have infrastructure. Well, let's see. My school system in this state, I believe, is similar, and it's similar demographics. I'm a little bit more suburban, but still clear. Costs per students are lower. The roads are better. Whatever. Now, here's the thing. I'm in the 5th largest metro area in Tennessee. Well, New York, I was 2 hours from the metro, 2.5 hours from the metro area, but I was in a similar but highly influenced by people from the metro area who have second homes, commuted, especially with this whole telecommute now, 2 days into the office. Right? So there was influenced by New York City and New York City money. But yet, our metro area competes in so many categories with that, right? Now let's take New York's 5th largest metro area, which would probably be like Syracuse. Well, you got one block where the university is, the rest of it's disgusting. So I don't understand what he's talking about infrastructure. You know, roads falling apart, water mains falling apart. It's happened all, it was in the news all the time. Oh, this water main broke, flooding in Troy, flooding in Schenectady, flooding in Buffalo. I was like, so what investments are you talking about? No, it's all going to corruption. And you also have to compare, it's the price parity. Okay, what do we produce? Goods and services. That's our totality. What is that totality monetary figure buy in that state? That's what your real GDP is, your price parity GDP. So it's not. He lives on cloud 9. He represents a very wealthy district, completely service oriented, on Long Island, outside of New York City, close to it though. And it's a very homogenized service sector kind of district. And that's it. That's all he knows. So it's very simple. EJ Antoni hit it. If I'm a guy, a dentist, and I make $300,000 and I live in a suburb of Houston and I make a $300,000 a year and I live in a suburb of New York, I should pay the same federal income tax. Period. What you pay at the state local level, especially a state like New York, like for example, Medicaid is matched by the federal government. New York covers everything for Medicaid. So last I checked, I think it was like $65 billion they spent. So the federal government spends more to New York per patient because of that reason. Healthcare costs to begin with are more expensive in New York State for a multitude of reasons. And one of the other factors that I looked at, because I remember back when this first bill was passed, Peter King voted no, and he said, well, the balance of payments between the states and the federal government. But one of the things in those payments is they list Social Security, which is absurd. Because Social Security, you pay in, it gets filtered through, and then the money goes out to the recipients. Well, a lot of people leave New York. So you have a lot of people paying in New York, and then when they retire, they leave New York. But that's a filter to an individual. That isn't a relationship between the individual and the federal government. It has nothing to do with your GDP, your production, or anything like that. That's absurd type of a comment. And then if that's the case, well, then figure out why do so many people want to retire outside of New York. We won't do that. But it's basically, you have so much corruption. You have like I lived in a county of 40,000. They had 7 school districts, 7 principals, 7 superintendents, 7 administrative buildings, right? So the state can only pay so much. So you have to have these giant property taxes. Then you have all the union benefits. You just go through the list of why it's not. And it doesn't sustain itself. So it's why you have nearly a $300 billion budget. With roads that are falling apart. All right, so moving on. So here we go. This is from Scott Pressler. Mark Elias filed a lawsuit with the Wisconsin Supreme Court challenging Wisconsin's congressional maps. They challenge claims that maps are gerrymandered. This comes after Democrats won a Wisconsin Supreme Court seat on April 1st. I tried to warn everybody. Yep. But again, bad candidate on the Republican side. Not the type of candidate that can win this stuff, and Republicans still don't know how to win without Trump on the ballot because a lot of them are stuck in the wrong environment, messaging, bad consulting class. But that's not what we're discussing, but this is what's happening. Of course they're going to do this. This is what Mark Elias does. You know, this is the man during COVID. Right off the bat, let's use this to change the rules on the ballots. He was the mastermind behind that, and here we go with this. But in a tight race, you're looking to re-gerrymandering it. You get one more automatic Democrat seat and then 2 or 3 that are now toss-ups. Makes a big difference in control of the House. It's why these races matter. Okay? But what I understand Democrats do, but Republicans don't do it. Look at Illinois. You got to look at a 4 Republican congressmen, but Trump only lost by 8 points. I mean, come on. They have 40% of the generic House vote, at least. And they got 4 out of 18 seats, or 17 seats. So that's gerrymandered too. But see, Democrats play this game and Republicans don't. You know, it's just like, I'll get to it in a second, but it's unbelievable. Now, also on the political front, in October 2024, 6 polls. Morning Consult had it Harris 50, Trump 46. Final result, Trump 49, Harris 48.3. That's a 5.4 point miss. Trump underpolled 3.5, Harris overpolled 1.9. Trump approval according to Morning Consult. And if you can't see it there, it's basically Trump underwater by 6 is what their new thing is. So Qantas, by the way, who I believe was in the top 3 we'll say top 5. I don't want to get it wrong. So we'll say definitely top 5 most accurate pollster for 2024 is saying, look at this. You were off 6 in the election. Now you're off 6 here. Okay? Why would we listen to people who get elections wrong all the time? Listen to their approval rating because it's just the media pushing out narrative and also scaring the Republican establishment. All right? Bad idea. Okay? And when the Republican establishment leaves Trump, that's when they lose elections. So that's the point. Beware of the polls. Richard Barris, Big Data Poll, Qantas, Emerson you can follow. I mean, there are a few out there that have a good track record that you can throw. You could throw Ann Seltzer out the window, by the way. So, next one, and this is what I wanted to get to. This is the ICE facility outside of New Jersey. Yeah, that's Democrat Monica McIlvert. So, there she is there. You can see the video. We know what she did. She totally... let me widen this up. I'm trying to widen it up there. There we go. There we go. There she is in the red jacket right there. Okay. So, what's the key thing? So we know what you did for the arms. The mayor got arrested and everything like this. But Mike Johnson put out, we're looking into it, this, that. He censored and kicked out his own member over nothing. Okay, Santos. Here, this is a woman hitting a federal official. There's nothing to discuss. Expel her. I guarantee you if this was a Republican who did that at a federal place, he would expel her. That's the game difference. That's what I'm going back with the Mark Elias thing that Pressler put out. They play different ball games. And it makes you wonder, about what, there are great Republicans at local level, state level, and other places. At the federal level, there's only a few, man. They're so enthralled with the system. And the system is more important to them than their actually agenda. But, it makes you wonder, do they really even want to do this bill with Trump or whatever? They're like, oh, I can't wait till Trump goes so we can go back to normal to benefit themselves, right? That's it. Jess Kelly was doing a thing about defunding Planned Parenthood. Republicans will run on it in red districts, and will never do it. So, moving on. So, here we go. Tulsi Gabbard, Office of DNI, probes 11 deep state intel leaks aimed at subverting Trump. She says the DOJ intends to prosecute these rogue saboteurs. Absolutely. Now, what jumped to me about this particular story is I want to go back to the Signal Gate situation. Because you got to say, why would they be so eager to do Signal Gate when there are approved things that might have higher security? Well, go back to the prior Trump administration. It was the leaks were insane. Okay? So they wanted to, I believe, their goal was to try to limit leaks. So let's remove ourselves from the system because we can't trust ourselves from the bureaucratic, professional government, the fourth shadow government, deep state, administrative state, the unelected bureaucrat, whether in the intelligence community or not. There were leaks all over the place, and they want to do it. But now she's trying to probe it and go after it this time. See, he didn't have the people around him, and anybody who was around him got canned, right, or forced out. Like Bannon, Flynn, So here you go. And, Trump was learning the game now. So Tulsi's not going to handle it, and I believe she's going to do the right thing. So I think that's good. And she's going to be releasing some other stuff, too, from what I understand. So keep it up, Tulsi. I think she's doing a great job already. All right?
These rules become even more important. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. So when you have an immigration system that seems almost designed to permit abuse, that encourages some businesses to bring in lower paid workers rather than invest in our young people, or simply one that is sold by politicians to the British people on an entirely false premise, then you're not championing growth, you're not championing justice, or however else people defend the status quo. You're actually contributing to the forces that are slowly pulling our country apart. So yes, I believe in this. I believe we need to reduce immigration significantly.
So that was Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Now, I agree with everything he just said, which means this guy is one soulless, shameless, hypocritical bastard. Because this is a guy, ultra left-wing, globalist nutjob, okay, whose government's been arresting people for social media posts on this topic. It is his left-wing globalist crews who pushed for the open borders in the European Union and this illegal immigration coming in. This is him. And now he's saying that? First of all, he's lying. See, local elections, his party got hammered, finished fourth behind the Lib Dems in the left-leaning districts. Okay, even the conservatives beat them and got crushed by Reform. And they beat them, Reform, in a district that won by 30, Labor won by 30 points. They lost to Reform. Could that be the reason why he's changing? Of course. This is who these people are. If you are going to fundamentally change your opinion, because he actually articulates it well, as if it's a heartfelt opinion, and he gives the reasons why, and it makes sense. Yeah, if you heard him for the first time, you're like, oh, I like this guy. Okay? You don't change like that. Okay? Which shows you can never trust them on anything, because it shows you who they are, and what they're really interested in is their own personal power. All right, and the system benefits them. The institutions, the deep states, the administrative states, the bureaucratic structures, and the control benefit them. They will do anything. This spineless, slithering snail of a scumbag. And that's all he is, and that's all he will ever be. So, now that I got a little British politics out there, so this is a tweet. All right, that was good. I'm gonna just write it up. All right. Simeon and Orban, a new alliance takes shape in Eastern Europe. George Simeon's team has officially reached out to Hungary Viktor Orban, seeking common ground on sovereignty, tradition, and resisting EU overreach. It's time for a new axis of leadership in Europe. Brussels is shaking. The nationalists are uniting. What it means, Simeon isn't just winning votes, he's building a bloc. Romania could soon stand with Hungary and others against the globalist tide. The EU's power over Eastern Europe is crumbling fast. From Budapest to Bucharest, a new voice is rising. Europe for Europeans, not technocrats. The sovereign revolution has found its eastern front, and that's Simeon on the left and Orban on the right. I agree with about every statement. I really like this tweet. It was pretty fiery and oomphy, and just ahead of the runoff election in Romania, which we'll get to in a second. But that's true. There's also polling coming out for the Czech Republic, which shows the populist right party poised to win. Now the election is until October. You got Austria is with the FPO in power in Austria. You got Serbia obviously is there. So you got movements in Poland as well, Hungary. So it's good. Strength in Germany with the off day, strength in France with National Rally, and the performance we just saw in Reform finally hitting the United Kingdom. So this is pretty good. So while we're on that, Romania, Simeon, boom, runoff. Okay, 2 polls came out. All right, one has Simeon up by 4, sample size 3,000, May 8th to 11th. They have Simeon down 2 in their poll, down plus 2, up 2, sorry. And then this poll has it a dead heat. Simeon up 1 and Dan down 1. So I guess they had it, but they had it May 1st to May 3rd. I apologize, field work, May 9th to May 12th. Okay, so that was that. So, all margin of error. We'll see. Really looking forward to this election. I think it's really important, and the reason why the globalist establishment was so interested in Romania and didn't want Georgescu. That's because they borders Ukraine, so does Hungary, but there are also missile systems in Romania and a NATO base, a big one. So I think that was a lot of influence, and they were really afraid of Georgescu. Simeon is Georgescu light. He's actually part of the AUR party, as you can see here, and they what do you call it? They will say caucus with the ECR grouping in the European Parliament. So that's coming up. Let's see. It's I think it's this weekend. I think it's the 18th. I gotta double check that. I knew it. I just can't remember right now. So now we're gonna be on a little Ukraine. This is a little smaller, so I'm gonna real quick. Like this. Here we go. The cemetery is growing abnormally fast for a small city. The Ukrainian flags on small flagpoles mark the fallen soldiers. At the very moment these pictures were taken, new graves were being dug out of time. Now, this was a post from a pro-Ukraine individual. But look at that. And it was a small town. And and it said, while he was there, they were digging graves, just fresh. So why? So there you go. So now boom, little battlefield update on Ukraine, so it's their body. Now this is a big city in the south there, near the Donetsk Oblast, Konstantinovka. It's right there, a lot of open terrain, but you can see Russia's starting to push in several directions. Probably start the beginning of a cauldron here, but they're pushing it everywhere. Sumy, Kherson, Zaporozhye, they're really making progress. That slow and steady steamroller. The only difference now is they're doing it all along the front. While there was less activity in Kherson and Zaporozhye and Sumy, it was all about Luhansk and Donetsk. It's now spreading along the line, especially since Kursk has been re-liberated. They're still fighting in that area as well. So we'll keep an eye out. But you could see them really pushing in this Konstantinovka area. So now if they get beyond these areas, they're going to go after Liman, Lysychansk, Sloviansk. And that's pretty much the rest of the Donbass is then liberated from the Russian point of view. So now, this is a video of Erdogan. So Erdogan went on, he gave an address to his nation about the peace deal on Thursday. He announced that he spoke to both Zelensky as well as Putin. I believe he also spoke to Trump and Thursday. So what happened was basically Ukraine went out and said 30-day ceasefire, which Russians are absolutely opposed to, especially if you saw Lavrov's recent interviews and Peskov's interview with the reporter, where he explained why 30 ceasefire. They just say all you're going to do is rearm them, possibly slip NATO troops in here, deliver weapons. And one of the other key things is that Russia has now passed by a lot of these older defenses that were there from the first war from 2014 and 2015 that Ukraine has built up. So a lot of the areas now that Russia has passed, there aren't sufficient defenses. So fortifications. So what can happen is Ukraine can use that time to start to really stiffen those in that 30 point. Russia's like, we'll meet for no conditions at all, preconditions, in Istanbul, where they met in April of 2022, before Boris Johnson flew in and broke up the impending peace treaty that was about, an agreement that was about to be signed. So it looks like they're going to meet there on Thursday. And Zelensky looks like, I guess, kind of agreed. So let's read it to you. I spoke with the president of Turkey, Erdogan, to discuss key details of the meeting in Turkey, which could help bring an end to the war. I am grateful for his support and readiness to facilitate diplomacy at the highest level. We share a common view on the need for a ceasefire. It is also essential that our partners ensure monitoring of the ceasefire. We are ready for direct talks with Putin. It is crucial that we in Europe continue working together to secure long-term guarantees of security. We will remain in constant contact with the United States. President Erdogan and I agree to continue our joint efforts to ensure peace. So, thought is, there you go. Russia's not going to agree to a ceasefire unless major progress is made. But they're looking for a longer-term solution. Europeans do not want, they want the ceasefire, but they don't want the longer-term peace, and that they meant. So I don't know where this is going to go. Trump hinted out maybe he'll stop by or something like that. I wouldn't get close to it because I don't see this making it. I still believe the Russians are going to go to the Dnieper eventually. They will talk about it. If they crack a deal, they should. But, it's my belief that Ukraine's running out of time right now. Russia knows that, which is why they're not going to do the ceasefire, only to allow their enemy right now to strengthen. And that's just the reality of the situation. So we'll see what happens with that. If they meet, how it goes, whatever. But you just see it from all the meeting in Kiev with Macron and Zelensky and Starmer and what the Russians are saying. They want the ceasefire. Russians don't. Russians want negotiations, and they've laid out and been consistent for years, and they don't want it. And the Europeans are going to push Zelensky. And Zelensky plays his cat and mouse game in between the Europeans and the United States. Every time he's in Europe, he's raw about the war, and then when he needs something in the United States, he's like kissing Trump's ass. So we'll see. And then the Russians have been consistent. So we'll keep an eye out on what goes on Thursday, any news leading up to it. We'll also keep an eye out on these tariffs and trade deals, any more economic news that comes out, any more polling in the Romanian and upcoming Polish elections as well. Seeing what happens with the Iran situation, as well as if any issues with the Houthis, with that agreement that was reached between. So I guess it's just basically the Houthis won't attack U.S. ships, but they can attack anything else, and then we won't bomb them. I guess if our Navy's protected, whatever, let the Europeans worry about the Red Sea. So that's what I'll do. So I'll be posting throughout the week on my X, which is at Patriot Planner 1, my Getter at Patriot Planner. And if you like this video, please follow, like, and share. All right, thanks a lot. Until my next video. Have a good week.